Hi Tacoma, welcome back to your third grade TV classroom. Today is Tuesday, November 3rd, and I'm Mrs. Oslin. As we get started, take a moment and check in with your zone. Think about what emotion you're feeling. Think about what's happening in your brain and what's happening with your body. Do your brain and your body feel connected? Do you feel ready to learn? Think about your I message. You'll remember your I message sounds like I feel because Take some think time. Now I'm going to practice sharing my I message with Rafa. Rafa, Mrs. Wally and I were just talking about how we both have this pain in our shoulder, and I think I've talked about it a couple times the last couple weeks, but it's kind of making it really hard for me to focus. So I think that we are going to have to figure out our table situation so that when we're typing, it's not hurting our bodies as much. Now, you take a moment and share your iMessage with your learning buddy, someone in the room with you, or with me on the screen. You'll remember it's important for you to be able to share an I message so that other people know how you're feeling. It's also important for you to think about your feelings thermometer and recognize when you're starting to feel a really strong feeling and use really descriptive language like the feelings on our feelings tree so that other people know exactly what you're feeling. So maybe you're not just mad, maybe you're angry, which would be feeling mad really strongly. And then you would want to recognize when you need to use the stop and stay cool steps. You'll remember the stop and stay cool steps are: first, you say out loud, practice saying it with me, I feel like I'm losing control. Second, you stop. Third, you give yourself a chilly hug. So practice doing that with me. Wrap your arms and squeeze. Fourth, you practice breathing in for 5 and then blowing out really hard for 5. So let's practice doing that together. Then hopefully you're in a place where you're mentally and physically able to share your iMessage with someone and go on the peace path if you're having a conflict. You'll remember a conflict is a totally normal and natural problem that you might have with someone else. And the first step on the peace path is naming the problem. And you name the problem when you use your iMessage. Next, you brainstorm solutions, thinking about win-win solutions. Win-win solutions are solutions where both people get some of what they want and both people walk away feeling okay. And then you have a conversation with the person and decide which win-win solution you're going to try. So hopefully you got a chance to use the peace path this week. Now, we have been working on writing, and we have been using a lot of graphic organizers to help us get our thoughts out of our head and onto paper in an organized way so that we can write a persuasive letter. A persuasive letter is we're writing it to someone else to either get them to give us something that we want, like Alex did in I Want an Iguana, or we're trying to get someone to do what we think is the right thing, or we're trying to change someone's thinking or feelings about something. So we have been working through several different graphic organizers. So what I want you to do, take that off, is get all of the graphic organizers that we have been using. We have the Mapping It Out Persuasive Letter Writing Genre Map that we started last week. We have the Power of Persuasion graphic organizer. And you have your persuasive pointers, anchor chart. And these are all in your ELA packet. So I want you to find those. And you need your writing notebook and a pencil. So 3 graphic organizers, your writing notebook, your pencil, and your learning buddy if you haven't already grabbed them. So take a moment, gather your materials, and then come back to me. Also in your ELA packet, you will need the My Editing Checklist. Okay. Now, today I want to teach you how writers edit their work for correct use of conventions. Edit means you go back to your writing and you fix mistakes. So we're going to look at spelling, we're going to look at punctuation, we're going to look at capital letters, and we're going to make sure that we've done our very best, strongest writing. Because when we send our persuasive letter to someone, we don't want the message to get lost or confused because someone can't read it because of a little mistake that we made. So this is a really strong resource that writers use to make sure that their writing has a strong impact. And our editing checklist is going to help us, so do make sure you have that out. Now, we read the book Ms. Berlin Walks last week by Jane Yolen, and it was illustrated by Floyd Cooper. And we're going to look at just one page in this book and think about how the author, Jane Yolen, used some editing skills to go back and make sure that her writing, her conventions were accurate. So on this page, I want you paying attention to proper punctuation, periods, commas, question marks. Pay attention to capitalization. Where are the capital letters? And think about spelling and how Jane Yolen had to go back and check for correct spelling. When Ms. Berlin passed by, I'd watch her go all down the road in that unhurried way, talking or singing in quiet contemplation. And then one hot summer eve, because I had nothing else to do, my best friend, Frances Bird, having gone visiting kin in Roanoke, I jumped off the porch swing and ran right after Ms. Berlin. I expected her to yell, "Scat!" or to put a curse on me, or to fix me with her eye. But all she did was walk on, nodding and talking to herself. She never once looked behind. Now, I want to point out the punctuation here in the word scat. It ends with an exclamation mark, and that tells the reader that she didn't just say scat, she said it with enthusiasm. And in fact, the author adds the word yell to tell the reader how Ms. Berlin said the word scat. She didn't just say scat, she said scat, and scat means to go away. She yelled it. She also has several commas. Commas are used when we are listing ideas or when there is a break in the sentence, but it doesn't quite make sense to make it a new sentence. Also, notice that after the periods, there is a capital letter to begin the next sentence. Also, looking at the capitals, the person's name, Frances Bird, is capitalized. So is Ms. Berlin's name. So is the word I. That's proper capitalization. So we're going to go through your writing today, and you're going to look for things such as punctuation, spelling, and capitalization to make sure that it's correct so that your reader can really easily read your writing. So this is your My Editing Checklist that is in your ELA packet. I want you to get this out and have it ready to go. I also want you to have your writing notebook with your writing sample and your mapping it out persuasive letter writing map. Now, I'm going to show you what my writing looks like. I took my mapping it out map and I finished it after we worked together last week. And then I took each of the boxes and put them made them a sentence in a paragraph. So if we're looking at our My Editing Checklist, the things that we're going to be looking for are sentences end with a period, question mark, or exclamation mark. If you used them in your story, you're going to check commas and quotation marks and make sure they are placed correctly. Use commas in greetings and closings of letters. For our capitalization, we're going to make sure each sentence begins with a capital letter. Make sure all proper names begin with capital letters. Capitalize appropriate words in a title, if there is one. And then for spelling, if there are words in your spelling that you're not sure that you spelled them correctly, when you're writing, you circle them and then keep going. So we're going to go back and look at some circled words. And then use all spelling resources available, such as Snapword books or word walls. So looking at my writing, I have my letter to Mr. Rich. Now, I'm noticing that at the beginning, I have the date, and part of the capitalization is to make sure names begin with capitals. Now, right here, I'm already seeing that Mr. Rich, I did not capitalize that. And I also want to point out that when I did my draft, I left spaces in between my sentences so that I can go back and just put my corrections right there. So the M in Mr. should be a capital. Mr. is an abbreviation, so I do need a period after the R in Mr. And then Rich is Mr. Rich's name. It's a proper noun, so the R should also be a capital. And because this is a letter, we use commas in greetings and closings of letters. So Dear Mr. Rich should have a comma. Then, right away, I'm noticing that the first word in my first sentence is I, and I did not capitalize that. So I need to fix that. And then the second word is believe, and I circled it because I wasn't sure if I spelled that correctly. So what I can do is I remember seeing that word in my persuasive pointers chart. So I was going to use that as a tool for correct spelling. Use emotional and urgent words such as believe. There it is. So, I left out the I and the E. So I'm just going to write the correct spelling right above it. B-E-L-I-E-V-E. And then I can just cross that out because I know I fixed it. Okay, I believe it is very important for kids to play, and I didn't like how that was, so I crossed it out, to get outside and play every day. Playing is how, okay, that sentence sounds kind of funny. I believe it is very important for kids to get outside and play every day. That's the end of a sentence, so I need to make sure I have a period and capitalize the next word. There we go. Playing is how kids learn. And I'm going to point out, I have the word learn in here several times. And it's really important to me that my writing has correct spelling. So I looked it up, and learn is spelled L-E-A-R-N. So I'm going to go through and correct all of the words learn. Okay. Playing is how kids learn to be friends. Now, this was a second grade troublemaker word for me. And so I didn't want to spend too much time thinking about it while I was writing. So I just wrote it how I thought it was, and I circled it and kept writing. So now I can go back to it and I can remember that trick that I learned in second grade, that the word friends has end at the end. So then I know that I switched my I and my E. Okay, go back. Playing is how kids learn to be friends, and they can learn math and science while. Now, I thought this looked kind of funny, so I circled it and kept writing. But now that I'm going back to it, I'm remembering that the word while starts with the digraph WH. There we go. While they play. After kids have played outside, they are better able to calm, and I wasn't sure if this was the correct there, because there's 3 different theirs. So I remembered when I'm talking about over there has the word here in it. That doesn't really help me here. Oh, but I know that this version of there means they are. So I'm going to go back and read that sentence and say they are and see if it makes sense. After kids have played outside, they are better able to calm their brains. That's not right. So it's the other there. There we go. Their brains and bodies, so they are ready to learn. When people play, their minds, there it is again, that's the wrong there. And I didn't catch it, I didn't circle it. So now I can just fix it. This is why it's important for writers to go back and reread their writing. There, it's the same one as up here. TH, cross it off. Their minds and bodies get stronger and they're healthier. There we go, okay. But now I'm looking at this word bodies and I don't know if that's right. So I'm gonna circle that and I'm gonna have to figure out if that's the right spelling for bodies. Now I ran out of room on my paper here for my closing. So here it is. And our chart reminded me that my letter needs to have capital letters at the closing and the opening. So I signed it appreciatively. So this should be a capital A. And then there's a comma after appreciatively, Mrs. Oslin. So then what I would do is, now that I've made all of these edits, I've made all of these changes looking for proper capitalization, punctuation, including periods, and spelling, now I would go back and rewrite this with all of those fixes, and then I would be just about ready to publish. And publish is when you actually share your writing with someone. So your job today is to go through all of your graphic organizers, make sure you have a draft written, and then as you're writing, don't slow down for spelling. Just do what you think and circle it. And then you're going to take your editing checklist and you're going to go through each line on your editing checklist and make sure that your sentences end with a period. Make sure you have proper commas or quotation marks if you used them. Use commas in your greetings and closing of letters. Each sentence should begin with a capital letter. All names should begin with a capital letter. The word I should be capitalized. If you have a title, that should be capitalized too. Circle words that are misspelled, attempt to spell them correctly, and then fix them. And then use your spelling resources like I did. I wasn't sure about the word believe, so I just went back to my persuasive pointers chart and that had the word on it, so I could just copy it and make sure it was spelled correctly. So today we learned how writers edit their writing for correct use of conventions, so that when you publish your persuasive letter, when you send it off to whoever it is that you're trying to get them to think like you or give you something or do the right thing, they won't get stuck on spelling errors or not be able to read because the sentence is a run-on because it really should have a period and be a new sentence. Use your editing checklist to help you. And your persuasive pointers, you can go back and add more sensory details to make your letter more interesting to read. And then you'll need your mapping it out. And also when you're independently reading today, don't forget what you can do when meaning breaks down. When you get to a word and you're not sure what it means, this chart in your ELA packet can help give you some strategies. Also, when you're independently reading, this is how you can stay focused. And then continue adding to your reading log and sending it to your teacher every week so that your teacher knows what it is that you're working on. Now, You have a 5-minute break. This is your time to gather your materials for math. You will need your whiteboard and marker, your learning buddy, and your counters. And this is also a reminder for you friends that tomorrow is Wednesday, November 4th, and it is a teacher-only day. So students you don't have class. We won't be here on the TV classroom. You get kind of a day off. Make sure you read and write, but we'll see you back here on Thursday. Thank you so much for thinking and writing with me today. I will see you on Thursday. Bye.
Welcome back, third graders. I hope we had a great break. Rafa and I here, we're just looking at our True or False Tuesday for today, and I think it's gonna be really fun. So in a moment, we're gonna show you an expression or equation, and you're gonna decide if it's true or false. Now, something I have been reviewing with every grade level today is that when we look at expressions in math, we do the same thing we do when we read. We start at the left, and we read it all the way to the right. And then for this, we're asking ourselves, is that true, what they said, or is it false? And I want you to remember that the equal sign, you can say equals, or you can say is the same as. And I find that when I say is the same as, it gives my brain some understanding that both sides of that equation need to make the same quantity, okay? All right, so let's open it up. Let's look. We're gonna read it out loud together. And yes, I'd like you to read it out loud. There's something about actually saying something that helps create pathways in our brain. So I'm gonna underline, we're gonna read it out loud. Then you're gonna do some mental math and decide, is it true or is it false? Are you ready? Let's go. So highlighter, make sure it's a color you can see. It's not, let's go. 59 minus 20 is the same as 29. Why is it false? Right, 59 minus 20 is 39. Is 39 the same as 29? No, they are not the same. That simply means does not equal or is not the same. Okay, starting here, reading left to right. 79 minus 16 is the same as 64. I don't even have to do the whole problem, friends. What is 9 minus 6? It's 3. So is 64 going to be the correct answer? No, this is actually 63. Is 63 the same as 64? No, it is not the same as. 63 is not the same as 64. 63 does not equal 64. All right, here we go. 88 minus 25 equals 63. Ding, 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 ding. What is 8 minus 5? What is 80 minus 20? Is 63 the same as 63? Yup. Ding, 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 ding. True. Okay, here we go. Read it out loud. 88 minus 29 is the same as 61. 88 minus 29 is the same as 61. Well, what's 88 minus 20? 88, 78, 78. That's 68. And 68 minus 9. No, that's going to be 59. Is 59 the same as 61? No, it is not. 59 is not the same as 61. Do you see how when you read it left to right, then you find your answer and you put it on either side of the equal sign? It makes it really clear if it's true or false. Doing the math always helps you answer the problem. Here we go. 98 minus 29 equals 77. Well, 98 minus 20 is 78. And 78 minus 9. 78 minus 9. What is 78 minus 9, friends? 69. Does 69 equal 77? No, it does not. False. All right. Today we're learning to decompose factors to help us solve problems involving multiplying by 7. We're working more on the decomposing of factors. So we're going to do a start practice problem to prime our brain, and then we're going to look at a problem that Matt is trying to solve. You're going to solve it on your own, and then we're going to go through how Matt solved it, and we're going to see if we can find some things that are similar and different about the way you solved it and the way that Matt solved it. Are you ready? Let's do the first problem. It says, fill in the blanks to show a way to break apart 8 times 6, then solve. Go ahead, give you 1 minute, try this problem. How are you going to break apart 6 to help you solve 8 times 6? Ready? Go. All right. There are a few ways you could have broken up the factor of 6. You could do 5 and 1, you could do 2 and 4, or you could do 3 and 3. I'm going to do 5 and 1. I know my times 5 and my times 1 really well. So 8 times 5 plus 8 times 1. Well, 8 times 5 is 40 plus 8. That means 8 times 6 equals 48. Did you get 48? You should have. Isn't that great? And I don't have to, I'm someone who my brain, when I memorize things, my brain goes a little bit slower. So it's way back in my memory, and I sometimes have a hard time pulling it forward and being able to say it. But I'm really good at remembering strategies. So it's actually faster for me to break apart a factor to find the answer than it is for me to just pull the fact up. There's no right or wrong way as long as you're fluent. And I find myself to be a fairly good mathematician. So remember that. These strategies help you become fluent. And over time, it may be that you get so good at this that your brain automatically remembers the fact, and that's the goal. But until then, you have a fluent way of solving the problem. All right, I'm going to erase. Now, Mr. Kevin, we're going to just have this up on the screen, because I'm going to actually use our PowerPoint for the next few problems. So it says, Matt gives crackers to 8 friends. Okay, so how many groups do we have? 8. Each friend gets 7 crackers. How many crackers does Matt give away? Now, you might want to go straight to a multiplication equation, but I need you to draw an array. You need to model this problem in a picture form. So I'd like you to draw an array that represents the equation you want to write. And you're going to solve. If you break a factor apart, I want to see you split apart your array. I want to see the equation with your factors split apart into the distributive property. You ready? So I'm going to give you about 2.5 minutes to do this work because it's kind of a complex, I want you to do multiple steps. So you need an array, say array. You need an equation. You need to show your thinking. Are you ready? Begin. don't forget, strong mathematicians check their thinking when they're done with a different strategy. So make sure that you do that when you finish to make sure you have an accurate answer. You have about 20 more seconds. All right. Now, put your cap on your pen. Put it down. I'm going to show you another slide. And we're going to have a discussion. And what I want you to do is I want you to compare what you've done on your whiteboard to what Matt does to solve his problem. Okay, so Matt gives crackers to 8 friends. Each friend gets 7 crackers. How many crackers does Matt give away? Or you could say, how many crackers is Matt going to need to give all of his friends 7 crackers? Here we go. Like I said, make an array. It says you can use an array to help understand the problem. Matt broke apart the columns, the numbers of crackers. How did Matt break apart his columns? What do you see? He still has 8, right? There's still 8 friends. But he broke it into 2 sections. What 2 factors did he break the 7 into? Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So he broke it into 5 and 2. Does 5 and 2 make 7? Do we still have 7 crackers in each group? Yeah, he just broke it right down the middle. Well, not down the middle, down the side, but he broke it all the way through. So this group has 5. This section has 5 in each group, and this section has 2 in each group. So we have 8 groups of 5, and we have 8 groups of 2. Do you see where we get the equation? 8 groups of 5, 8 groups of 2. Okay? So it says you can also use words and multiplication expressions to help understand the problem. Now this goes to you writing the expression or the equation that I told you to write. Giving 8 friends 7 crackers each is the same, look back here, is the same as giving 8 friends 5 crackers and 8 friends 2 crackers, right? So 8 times 7, or 8 times 5 plus 2, we broke the 7 into 5 plus 2, is 8 groups of 5 plus 8 groups of 2. Take a look at this. 8 groups of 5 right here, and we're adding it to the 8 groups of 2 right here. Okay? So, what multiplication problem is Matt trying to solve? What is the story representing? 8 friends, 7 crackers each. What is that multiplication problem? Yeah, 8 times 7. That should be somewhere on your board. If it's not, get it there. Equals what? C for crackers. Equals how many crackers? Write an addition expression to show how Matt broke apart 7. So back to here. How did he break apart 7? He broke it apart into 5 and 2. So what would be the addition expression to show 5 and 2? 5 and 2 make 7. Does that remind you of like first grade? 5 and 2 make 7. 5 plus 2 makes 7. So what expression are we going to write? 5 plus 2, because 5 plus 2 makes 7. See how we're using all the stuff from way back in kindergarten and first grade to help us here in third grade multiply? Isn't that amazing? That's why you learned it back then. So now it says, rewrite the multiplication expression from problem 1, 8 times 7, by replacing the 7 with the addition expression you wrote in problem 2. So now what we're doing is I'm showing you how to mathematically show this distributive property, okay? So we've been building it, we've been showing it with counters, we've been pulling it apart. Now I'm going to show you the math code. the math, numbers, and symbols that mathematicians use to express their thinking. Are you ready? So we're gonna go nice and slow, and you're gonna follow along with me. 8 times 7 equals 8 times, and then what did we broke apart 7 into? 5 plus 2, right? Look back at this picture. 8 times 7 is the same as 8 groups of 5 plus 2. Yeah? Yeah, we broke the 7 into 5 plus 2. Okay. Now, we have to do what the 2 parts are that we broke it into. So what was the first part? We don't have 8 groups of 7 anymore. Now we have 8 groups of 5 plus 8 groups of 2. Well, what is 8 times 5? 40. What is 8 times 2? 16. What does that equal? 56. Now we know 8 times 7 is 56. Why might someone want to break apart a factor like we did? Why would you choose to break apart a factor? Yeah, if it's a fact you don't know. I know 7 times 2 is 14. Do I need to break apart those factors? I know 8 times 5 is 40. Do I need to break apart those factors? But what if I didn't know? Then maybe I would want to break it apart, right? What if I'm like trying to remember a fact and I know it, but I can't remember it? Might be a good time to break apart a factor, right? I love this. Ready? We have the factor and we break it apart, and it looks like a number bond, right? So we have a part and a part. Here's my factor, and we break it apart. Do that with me. Ready? Here's my factor, break it apart. If I don't know the fact, I need to take a factor and I need to break it apart. Decompose. Ready? Take a factor, decompose it. Do it with me. Factor, decompose, factor, decompose. It's a good way to remember it. Okay, your turn. 4 times 7. Show me how you would do 4 times 7. You might know it, you might not. How are you going to break it apart if you don't? What are you going to do? What is your expression going to be? Ready? Go. You have 1 minute. Okay, how did you decompose 7? What did you do? My favorite way to decompose 7 is 5 and 2. I know my 5s and I know my 2s. So instead of 4 times 7, now I have 4 times 5 plus 2. And that equals 4 times 5 plus 4 times 2. Well, what's 4 times 5, third graders? 20 plus 8. 4 times 7 is 28. Ta-da! Great job. Now, we are out of time, which means it's time to go over your assignment. You're going to work on this. Okay? It says, draw on number 5 here on the second page over here. It says, draw a line to the pair of multiplication equations that can be used to solve each multiplication problem. That means you're looking for one of the factors and how they decomposed it and which one shows it. Okay? All right, so page 163 and 164 is your assignment. This is new, but if you're drowning, that means I'm like, oh my goodness, I have no idea what Mrs. Wally's talking about. Mrs. Wally, you are making no sense to me. That's okay. This is hard, but you know what? You can do it. And once it clicks, you'll understand it. If you're feeling that way right now, I want you to reach out to your teacher. I want you to make an appointment with your teacher, call them on the phone, or if you have access to Teams, set up a Teams appointment with them, and I want you to go over how to decompose a factor with them. Okay? Or you could watch the videos we've already done and watch again and see if seeing it a second time helps. All right? Okay. Now's my favorite time of the day. It's time for our affirmation. But don't forget, You can also email me if you're confused. If you're confused at home and you can't get a hold of your teacher for some reason, send an email. I will write back and I will help you. Okay? Awesome. I might even send a little video back explaining something to you. Wouldn't that be great? So, your affirmation today. You've been working with Ms. Oslin on being respectful problem solvers. That was our affirmation yesterday. Today, our affirmation is, I am a wonderful and kind friend. Because you are. Because when you're a respectful problem solver, you're a wonderful and kind friend. So, I'm going to go first, and then you're going to go. I am a wonderful and kind friend. Your turn. Awesome job, third graders. We will not see you tomorrow. There is no school TV lessons tomorrow. We will see you on Thursday. Bye.
Hey kids, we want to see your work. Just send your pictures and your stories to TV Classroom, 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405.